The following books, stories, plays, poems, or limericks you will hear on Right Time Radio are the intellectual property of the writers and authors mentioned. Any copying, recording, or reproduction of this work is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of the author. The content of this show is the individual expression of the author and does not necessarily reflect the views of the owner of this radio station.
It's the right time for Right Time Radio. I'm Tom Bruno.
And I'm Lynn Donovan.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today we have with us Davelyn Spencer.
We do.
And she's been on our show before, and we love having her back. She is a very well-decorated author.
Yeah.
I use those words specifically because she came... Exactly.
She has lots of awards for her writing.
Well, there you go.
She came in this morning.
Ribbons, she'd be covered in them.
And she came in this morning and wanted to make sure she was decorated correctly. David,
Ignore him.
I'm trying to
Everyone,
make you blush, but you're not even on the radio. You can't see a blush.
Well, when you dress in a hurry, you want to make sure you don't have your lipstick on your eyebrows.
Exactly.
I know, we checked it. And
that might be a thing, though.
It'd start a fad.
Yeah.
Lipstick on the eyebrows.
Yeah, Lord only knows, right?
Yeah, let's not do
Seen
that.
some stranger stuff.
Well, since she's been on before, I'm going to give you an abbreviated biography about Davelyn.
Yes.
She is the wife and mother of professional rodeo bullfighters. Davelyn Spencer writes inspirational Western romance, and the stuff you've read for us before, really good stuff. And Lynn and I are over here taking notes while you're reading this.
Salivating over your proses.
It's really good stuff. And she's been recognized for that. She has taught composition and creative writing at Pueblo Community College. She served as a columnist and reporter for the Canyon City Daily Record. And she has countless nonfiction pieces published in various magazines, lots and lots. One of them that I've mentioned before is Western Horseman, which is a favorite of my wife.
Wife, comma,
singular.
Singular. As in possessive.
See, we're editing as we go.
Yes.
Okay. She is a Publishers Weekly best-selling novelist and the winner of the Will Rogers Gold Medallion for Inspirational Western Fiction.
Yeah.
Her previous career as a rodeo journalist and award-winning crime beat reporter prepared her for life along Colorado's Front Range, wrangling Blue the Cowdog and mouse detectors Annie and Oakley.
Those are tabby cats.
My cats.
Yeah, they're cats.
Oh,
Yes.
but rodeo journalist
Annie
just sounds romantic. I mean, that sounds like a romantic lifestyle.
I know.
So cool.
It does.
Yeah, she and Ernest Hemingway.
Where can we learn more about Davelyn?
At DavelynSpencer.com.
That is so easy.
Davelyn Spencer, DAVALYNN Spencer.com.
SPENCER. Yep.
All right.
That's our girl.
Amazing that her 13th fiction title is being released next month.
Wow.
And she is she has 5 more books in the hopper, jockeying for position, ready to come out. But what's going on today with her, Lynn? There's some really exciting stuff.
She has got some cool stuff going on. I mean, today's the day. In Canyon City, we have something called First Friday. And downtown, they all do something on the first Friday of the month. And that's what this is. And Kaleidoscope specifically is having Davelyn Spencer as their author of the month, correct?
That's correct.
And so you're going to have...
Congratulations, Davelyn. Again, you just get more and more awards. You're going to...
I know, it's amazing. She's going to have this specific book that she's going to be reading today, and it's called An Unexpected Redemption. But she's also going to have some other paper books available there, Canyon City Chronicles and some other ones too. So check it out at the Kaleidoscope downtown from 5 till about 7. I've been told they go a little longer. They just kind of go by the crowd.
Correct.
They generally have food and all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of fun to go to.
Yep. Pam and Patty are the owners over there.
They are.
And they are really, they're promoting a lot of local things,
Yeah.
you know, with the local authors, and we really appreciate that. And so we're trying to work. And
Yeah.
we've coordinated, last time we had Roger
We did.
in here. The last Friday, he was the author of the month over there, and he got to read last month.
Yeah.
And he had some really interesting, good
And
stuff too.
I think they refer to it as hashtag Together We Grow, and it's the idea that the entire downtown companies or businesses get together and promote each other, and I think it's an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaleidoscope's at the corner of 6th and Main.
Thank you. Yes, I
old
couldn't
cell
think
house.
where it was.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
old
because
cell house.
it did move. It
Yes.
wasn't there all
Yeah,
the time.
it was
You want to talk about your
across from the
thing
library.
at the boutique in Westcliff, Beckwith
Yeah,
Boutique?
Tomorrow, there's going to be some great scenery up in the Wet Mountain Valley. The historic Beckwith Ranch is hosting
Love that place.
Yeah.
a holiday market
We'll have to go.
boutique at Beckwith. And I'm going to be up there with my books, with other vendors. There's going to be several authors up there, plus other vendors, clothing,
Neat.
jewelry, art.
Fun stuff.
So, will you be autographing books at
Yes.
both these two events?
Yes, yes,
Great.
exactly.
Yeah.
Assuming
really
she
nice.
doesn't sell out tonight.
Yeah, and as you guys listen out there,
see
and we're
what
gonna
happens.
jump into the reading here. But Dave Lynn, of course, is an excellent reader, and so we're gonna let her read
She
her own
is.
book. But realize that as you hear this and get excited about her books, you can come and meet her today at Kaleidoscope at
from
5
5
o'clock.
to 7. And then
All right.
tomorrow, I think it's like 10 till 5, something
I
like
believe
that.
it's 10 till 5, yes.
Yeah, and who wouldn't love to go to Westcliff this time of year when the trees are all turning on the way over
What
there?
a beautiful drive that'll be.
Yes, exactly.
So, Dave Lynn, would you honor us with a reading from Chapter 1, An Unexpected Redemption?
Olin Springs, Colorado, late August 1881. Elizabeth Beaumont had been thrown off Greenbroke horses and out of rooming houses, but never from a train. That's what it felt like as brakes squealed, the car jerked against its couplings, and the conductor opened the door into darkness. He jumped to the platform, set down his steps, and glanced at the depot. "Hope someone's meeting you, miss." He offered his hand. "Looks like there's trouble aplenty in town." Thin light haloed the train station, wavering behind it like an uncertain sunrise, like Elizabeth's confidence. "But my trunk and crate." "Yes, ma'am." He pointed back down the platform. "There, you hurry now." She descended into moonless night, and he snatched up the step, pulled himself inside, and closed the door. Not exactly thrown off the train, but close enough to it. The passenger car eased ahead. Another slid by, and the mailbag hit the platform with a thud. She assumed it was the mailbag and not a body. Startled by the thought, she squinted at the shapeless lump until assured it was made up of letters and not limbs. Touching the back of her hair, she adjusted her modestly plumed hat, then tugged at her gloves and reticule, both the same deep navy as her plaid traveling suit. It mattered little now, since all was a colorless black and no one was meeting her. Still, little was more than not at all. Some might consider arriving under cover of night weak-hearted, but why suffer scorn when it could be avoided? 6 years ago, she had disappeared without warning, an impetuous 17-year-old. Now she returned in a similar manner, much preferred to stepping off a train to the judgmental whispers and shaking heads of local gossips. Click-clacking out of town, the train chased its feeble lantern along the tracks, the whistle wailing around the bend for the mountains. In the quieting aftermath, more urgent sounds arose. Men shouted, horses scrambled. Coal smoke and steam gave way to the pungent scent of burning wood, nothing like a comforting hearth or a campfire. The eerie flicker beyond the depot drew her with morbid interest. Gathering her skirts, she hurried around the end of the depot and stopped at the next corner. Terror clutched her throat. 2 blocks south, bright flames blazed from the second-floor windows of the Olin Springs Hotel. Men ran past, one snagging her skirt on the bucket he carried. She stumbled forward, but the fabric gave and the bucket ripped away, leaving her petticoat exposed. Someone shouldered her from behind. "Get out of the way. This is no place for a woman." At a trough in the next block, a man worked the pump. Those running with buckets handed them over and rushed ahead to take their place in a growing line. Elizabeth ran toward the far end, elbowing her way between an older man and a boy. She grabbed the bucket shoved toward her, then handed it off to the youngster and turned for the next one coming down the line. Time slowed in the wavering glow of yellow flames, and at a lull in the passing, she pulled off her gloves and glanced up at the hotel. Wood groaned and snapped, and debris and sparks spewed skyward as the second floor roared down onto the first. Horses tethered at hitch rails across the street reared and broke loose, then thundered away with heads high and reins flailing. Had the town no fire brigade? No hose team? If the flames weren't stopped, they'd consume the entire block. With her senses numbed by the endless lifting and passing of leather, wooden, and metal buckets, Elizabeth missed the moment that dawn blinked upon the scene. She was weary, filthy, and soaked to the bone. Only her mouth was dry, her throat raw from smoke and ash. The buckets slowed and she stepped back from the line. Others did the same, eyes white and ghost-like in their soot-covered faces, shoulders drooping in fatigue and failure. Little had been saved.
This is Right Time Radio.
Y'all fell asleep over
And we did. I'm sorry.
I was looking up the word reticule.
He was. He
was like,
loves her writing, and
I
he is
do,
just
but
constantly learning new words.
That's a purse. That's a purse.
Damask.
That's a purse.
Yeah, I got that one. Damask
it's
is
fun.
Damask is a cloth.
okay.
A type
We're
of
going to come
cloth.
back after
We
this
will be
word from
back.
our reticule sellers.
Support, compassion, and understanding. That's what makes up the team at Fremont Regional Hospice. If you or someone you know is facing a life-limiting illness and you're unsure about what to do, then call the specialists at Fremont Regional Hospice to see how we can help. Call 275-4315 or come by 1439 Main Street in Canyon City. Fremont Regional Hospice is proud to serve Fremont County and surrounding areas and is proud to be your hometown hospice.
Hi, this is Pastor Mike Wooldridge from Living Word Foursquare Church, inviting you to listen in to our new program called The Living Word on 1400 KRLN at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning. Our messages and lessons are right out of the Bible. We are a non-denominational church who believes in the written word. Join us for Sunday worship and fellowship at 10 a.m. at 1710 Mariposa Road in Canyon City. And tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to 1400 KRLN.
KRLN weather, partly cloudy skies this morning, then sunny, breezy, and warmer this afternoon. Southwest winds increasing at 10 to 15. A high today around 79. Mostly clear and breezy tonight, the low near 42. Then sunny and mild tomorrow, the high around 73. 34 was our low this morning after a high of 65 yesterday. 50 degrees currently at the Weather Center.
Radio 1400 KRLN.
We are back with more of Right Time Radio, and we want to thank Fremont Regional Hospice for sponsoring us so that we can be on the show. And we're going to continue with The Unexpected Redemption by David Lynn Spencer, reading by David Lynn Spencer. Take it away.
Only then did Elizabeth notice the young couple watching from the street, one quilt wrapped around both of them, feet bare and they're disheveled. They clung to each other. Horror marred their faces as if they'd just watched all their worldly possessions go up in flames. Likely they had. Elizabeth dragged herself closer to the hotel's black skeleton. Brass and iron beds had fallen through from the upper floor, landing in distorted heaps below. Wash basins, chairs, and trunks lay broken or scorched. Ashes formed rectangular patterns where once fine furniture had stood. One corner of the hotel remained oddly intact, a reminder of its former glory. Turning away, she again faced the desperate-looking couple clinging to each other and their quilt, unmoving as others milled around them. She had a room reserved at Margaret Snowfield's boarding house, but where would they go? "Excuse me." With the back of her hand, she pushed grimy hair from her face. "I'm Elizabeth Beaumont, and I couldn't help noticing you standing here. Were you staying at the hotel?" The woman's face crumpled into tears, and she hid against the man's shoulder. "Yes." He tightened one arm around her. "We arrived 3 days ago to set up shop. I'm Hiram Eisner, a tailor, and this is my wife, Abigail." Abigail peeked out and started weeping anew. "Do you have a place to stay?" A pointless question, since Elizabeth had nothing to offer but her own room, if she still had a room. "We will stay in our shop," Hiram said, as if coming to a conclusion. She laid a hand on Abigail's quilt-covered shoulder and leaned closer. "It will be all right." Such assurance from one who had none for herself. Abigail looked out from her hiding and nearly smiled. Hope dampened her dark lashes. "Toda." She said thank you. Hiram nodded once in agreement. Elizabeth rushed back to the depot, hoping to find her belongings still there and wondering if things would ever be all right for her again. "Go home and wait," had been Irma Clark's encouragement after the humiliating debacle with their employer. Though Irma was Elizabeth's only friend in Denver, her directive was easier heard than followed. This homecoming was not what Elizabeth anticipated, though it certainly was ignored. That small wish had been granted. But the waiting part would no doubt prove more difficult because it involved, well, waiting, something in which she had never excelled. The mail bag in her trunk and small crate sat like orphans on the platform's edge. No thieves in Olin Springs to abscond with them, as might have been the case at Denver's Union Station. Alone once more in quieter surroundings, she fingered her reticule, sodden but still dangling from her wrist. Little sparkle, if any, shone from the dirty glass beads, though if the light hit at just the right angle, one or two still winked. Her gloves were gone. She slumped against her camelback trunk, stealing a moment's rest before trekking the few blocks to Mrs. Snowfield's boarding house across the tracks. From her low vantage point, she could just make out the cupola atop the mansion. That's what she and Sophie Price had called the ornately scrolled 2-story house on Saddle Blossom Lane when they were girls. At the moment, she didn't know which was more foolish, their girlish conjecture of secretly meeting suitors in the romantic cupola, or that ridiculous street. A low growl vibrated through the cord of her reticule and shimmied up her arm. Jumping to her feet, she faced an enormous beast that had clamped onto her bag. "Oh, no, you don't!" She slapped the cur, snatching her once lovely accessory from its drooling jaws. Quick as a snake, it reclaimed its prize with a sickening rip. The tear unbalanced her, and she tumbled backward into the dirt along the tracks. Clearly the winner in the tug-of-war, the brute shook her reticule in triumph, flinging coins and beadwork for yards. A rouge pot rolled beneath the platform. She didn't know whether to swear or scream. "Pearl!" "Pearl?" The tawny four-legged thug looked past the depot, ears flattening at the commanding tone. "Down!" It dropped to its haunches, the ruined bag dangling from its mouth. Elizabeth rubbed her wrist. A fine homecoming this was. "Give it back." A scowling stranger approached from beyond the platform, his long legs making light of the distance. The mongrel inched closer, giving Elizabeth a woeful look, then opened its mouth and released her reticule as well as its atrocious breath. She gagged. With a whine, the animal dolefully watched its master stop before them. The man bent over and took Elizabeth's elbow. "You all right, miss?" Most unladylike, she spread her feet to stabilize her footing and gripped his hard hand, pulling herself to a standing position. He did not immediately release her fingers, and she looked up into laughing gray eyes framed by a mask-like layer of soot. He smelled of wet clothing and smoke. Or was it she who smelled? Snatching her hand away, she dusted her backside, long past caring about deportment. Does this beast greet all train passengers so vigorously? The man tipped his hat up, and morning light glinted off the star on his vest, quite unlike the stout little lawman she remembered, a point in her favor. Only the beauties. His attempt at flattery stung, in spite of the humor that danced in his eyes. Surely she hadn't run from one lecher into the jurisdiction of another. My apologies, miss. I had no idea Pearl was loose until I heard you holler. At that, she sniffed. Ladies did not holler. But neither did they work bucket brigades or sprawl in the dirt on their backside. She glanced at his Colt .45 long barrel. The man took his job seriously. Resecuring her hat pin, she wondered why she hadn't thought to use it against her attacker. Accepted. Beg pardon? Your apology. I accept it. A tilted nod. My pleasure. Too much pleasure to her way of thinking. He'd been entertained by the exhibition with his dog. She turned toward her trunk and crate. Another coin slipped from her mangled bag, and he picked it up with several others and offered them to her. Wilson, miss. Garrett Wilson, sheriff and apologetic dog owner. Witty, too. Taking the coins, she discounted his breadth of shoulder and confident stance. A similar confidence had once enticed her to make a very poor decision, but she was wiser now. Mrs. Elizabeth Beaumont. I don't recall seeing you in town before. You weren't planning to take a room at the hotel, were you? Nosy or protective of his territory, at least he didn't know her. She let her gaze linger on the camelback, hoping he'd take the hint. Independence was one thing, dragging a heavy trunk to the boarding house by herself quite another. He bit. This yours? She bit her tongue. One trunk? One passenger? It is. She'd been deliberating as well as resting when the lion dog attacked, considering which to take first, the trunk or her treasure. Valuing the means of her livelihood over her meager wardrobe, she reached for the crate. The sheriff was quicker. He wrapped one arm around it and rested it against his gun belt. I'll be happy to bring this along, and the trunk, if you'll just point me in the right direction. After slinging water and tangling with Pearl, I imagine you're spent. Either he'd seen her in the bucket line or she looked like she'd been in the bucket line. Probably the latter. I am far from spent, Sheriff Wilson. Mother had warned her about her temper, relentlessly insisting Elizabeth display humility and grace. However, good manners paled in the burning glow of assaulted sensibilities, overriding her need of help. With both hands, she took hold of the crate. Thank you just the same, but I shall take care of my own affairs. He studied her a moment, amusement spattering green flecks across his gray gaze as he took in her hat and face, her dirty jacket and torn skirt, but he didn't release the crate. She tugged in a one-sided struggle that drew her closer. Watching her from mere inches above, he stood stalwart. Dark stubble shadowed a jaw as strong as his hold, and a small scar on his left cheek ticked into a dimple-like crease. His mouth opened as if he would comment and then clapped shut. He let go. She fell to her southern side again, the heavy crate adding injury to insult. Without hesitation, he offered his hand, brows slightly raised. She glared and shoved the crate off her lap. I think not. Suit yourself. He took a step back, touched his dirty hat brim politely, and strode away. The yellow monstrosity that had started the whole affair rolled out a deep-throated woof and trotted after him. Elizabeth pushed up, using the crate, reminding herself that she'd been bucked off snottier colts, only slightly taller than the sheriff's dog. But this time the bruising reached deeper, all the way to her pride. Mother was right about that particular trait preceding a tumble. A few colorful beads lay in the dirt around her, but she let them lie, gathering only the rouge pot from beneath the platform. Anger, fatigue, and humiliation warred for preeminence as she glanced around.
All right, let's cut for a commercial at the bottom of the hour. Thank you, David Lynn. And this is Right Time Radio. We'll be right back.
Is Happy Endings Caboose Cafe, located adjacent to the Royal Gorge Route Railroad's train depot. The beautifully restored caboose features delicious espresso coffees, sweet and savory crepes, paninis, gelato, and other treats that can be enjoyed on our patio or packaged to go. Happy Endings is open every day at 8 a.m. Cappuccino wishes and gelato dreams come true at Happy Endings Caboose Cafe. Stop in and get your happy ending today.
Star Country 104.5 FM, your home for a better variety of country and more high school sports. Proud to present live coverage of high school football. And this Friday night's light shone on Don Breeze Stadium when the Pueblo South Colts travel to Lewis Palmer for a confrontation with the Rangers. Hi, this is JJ Valentine. Join me along with Tracy Rink for all the exciting action. Our pregame show begins at 6:30 with the kickoff at 7. It's Friday Night Lights, South and Lewis Palmer, live online at network1sports.com and on Star Country 104.5 FM.
How do we find security in an uncertain world? By gaining more knowledge or somehow getting on God's good side? No, Dr. Michael Ziegler says there's a better way, the one that God has made for us through the death and resurrection of Jesus. In Christ, God draws us homeward to himself. Hear Dr. Ziegler's message this week on The Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour is brought to you by St. John's Lutheran Church in Canyon City. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. here on 1400 KRLN.
The 5th annual Boo at the Bridge is set for October the 19th from 4 to 8 p.m. This is something your little goblins wait patiently for every year. Experience the Royal Gorge Bridge at night. Tickets are available online at booatthebridge.com. Kids 3 and under are free. It's the 5th annual Boo at the Bridge, October 19th from 4 till 8 p.m.
Radio, and we are back, and we are going to do a little bit more of An Unexpected Redemption by David Lynn Spencer, and then we're going to spend some time visiting with David Lynn because she's got some really interesting information about how she put this book together. So take it away, David Lynn.
A hatless man stood at the narrow gap between the depot and the express office, writing on a small pad. He caught her watching him and ambled off, still writing. A reporter for the Gazette taking notes on our standoff? She hefted the crate and turned for Saddle Blossom Lane, as ridiculous a street name as Pearl was for that monstrosity of a dog. If the scribbling gent really was a reporter, surely the fire was a bigger story than her surreptitious return. Shifting the crate against one hip, she limped away. Cade would have a wild horse fit the moment he learned she'd come home but not come to the ranch. She disliked the prospect of squaring off with her big brother, but refused to let him plot her future. On the other hand, he had assisted her financially after Edward's abandonment. The remaining syllable came growling up from her chest, much like the dog's departing remark. It took great restraint to keep from glancing behind her. No need to see if Sheriff Wilson and his sidekick were watching her progress. She could feel his smirk, the lout. Give a man a gun and a badge, and he thought he ruled the world. Dust danced around her shuffling steps and clung to her damp hem like a bad reputation. Who was she kidding? The residents of Olin Springs had memories like elephants. They didn't need to witness her arrival to know that she'd returned, alone, without a husband. Tongues would wag faster than that yellow dog's tail for a ham hock. She'd need a running iron to change the brand she'd acquired. The ornamental brackets and wide eaves of Mrs. Snowfield's elegant home came into full view, exactly the sanctuary Elizabeth sought. Perhaps the elderly widow had someone to assist boarders with their belongings, someone not prone to supposition and a flapping jaw. The Snowfield grounds took up a generous acre. In the morning's fresh light, the mistress stood at her wrought iron fence, leaning over the decorative spires as she craned her neck and dabbed her forehead with a hanky. Elizabeth was sweating like a lame pig. The gate swung open. "My dear Betsy, what happened? I heard the train arrive last night, and when you didn't come, and then the fire, oh, my lands, I was worried sick about you. And look at you. Let me help you with that box." "It's quite heavy. If you could open the front door for me, that would help." As wispy and lithe as ever, Mrs. Snowfield fluttered up the veranda steps and held open the ornately carved door. Elizabeth made it to the oak staircase and set the crate on the second step before plopping down beside it. Her new landlady closed the door with purpose and turned, hands on her narrow hips. "My dear, you looked as if you walked all the way from Denver and then helped fight that fire." Just what Elizabeth needed, a reminder of her bedraggled appearance. She unpinned her hat and laid it atop the crate. "Oh, you're half right. Let me get you some refreshment, and then you can tell me what happened." Whisking down the hallway, Mrs. Snowfield called over her shoulder. "Your room is on the second floor, first one to the right." Clearly, there was no one to help guests with their belongings, but there was indoor plumbing and a bathing room. Elizabeth had confirmed that bit of rumor in her letters when making arrangements to board with Mrs. Snowfield. At $1 per day, certain amenities were expected. A thick floral runner carpeted the stairs, and Elizabeth welcomed its cushion beneath her weary feet. Rather than share refreshments and information, she preferred to take a long nap and soaking bath, but the latter must wait until she had her trunk. At the open door to her room, she stopped with a gasp. The furnishings were as lovely as anything Denver had offered, though she'd not enjoyed the opulence of the Windsor Hotel. She set the crate and her hat on a writing desk at the curtained window, then tossed her ruined reticule onto the four-poster bed. The embodiment of her emotional state, it too had come home in tatters. An inlaid rosewood bed table and washstand complemented an imposing wardrobe and dressing table. The elegantly carved mantelpiece bore keepsake boxes, cut glass dishes, and painted figurines. The cheval mirror accentuated the grime clinging to her torn skirt, and she opened the wardrobe in search of a clothes brush. Lavender sachet wafted out, and she nearly burst into tears at the long-lost luxury. Matured by betrayal and thinned by the formerly unknown experience of true hunger, she counted on the residents of Olin Springs not recognizing her as the impulsive rancher's daughter they'd once known. Not until she was employed, providing for herself, and no longer in need of her brother's assistance. And her plan did not call for sitting mildly by and letting things work out. Pushing aside blue damask curtains, she lifted the window. A hesitant breeze replied, tainted by the smell of wet ash, but a clear view of the depot lay beyond the treetops. Perhaps a mile or so in the hazy distance rose the nearest ridge, around which the railroad curled. Exhaustion drew her to the bed, where she fell onto a matching damask counterpane and feather tick, judging by the absence of lumps and crunching husks. Just pure downy comfort. Oh, to skip dinner and simply sleep. "Betsy, dear, are you all right?" Waking with a start, she elbowed up. Betsy again. A gentler light filled the room, and her hostess stood in the doorway, concern bunching her dark brows. Oddly, those brows had not faded to match the cloud of white atop her head, and they accentuated the woman's worry. "Oh, I must have dozed off." Elizabeth threw her legs over the edge, embarrassed that her landlady saw she'd not taken time to remove her soiled clothing before flopping across the bed. "Well, yes, you did doze. It's almost supper time." A forgiving smile. "But you must have needed it, I dare say. Come down when you're ready and we'll have a bite. It will be just the two of us this evening. Sheriff Wilson has a late meeting." "Excuse me?" Surely Elizabeth had misheard. Mrs. Snowfield paused at the door. "The sheriff, dear. When he delivered your trunk, he said to go ahead without him." Elizabeth choked, her raw throat burning as she coughed until she couldn't breathe. Mrs. Snowfield rushed to the washstand, filled a tumbler with water from the pitcher, and handed it to her with a sharp slap on her back. "Goodness, child, whatever is the matter?" Garrett smacked his hat against the side of his leg, then slapped it onto his head and strode down the alley toward his office. That dark-haired gal owed him 2 bits for hauling her trunk to Snowfield's, and he owed himself a bath, but the wash basin at the back of his office would have to do for now. He shed his shirt and took to his hair with a soap cake, dirtying the basin's water to near black by the time he finished with his face, neck, and arms. A clean shirt, though worn, felt like the start of a new day, and he tossed the soiled one on a chair with his other trousers, waiting on a trip to the laundry house. Why'd she have to be so all fired uppity? He'd seen her in the bucket brigade last night, slinging water with the men, and had gone looking for her this morning. Too bad he didn't find her before Pearl did. Things might have turned out different. Then again, maybe not. She was a snippy thing. And of course she holed up at Snowfield's. With the hotel still smoldering, she didn't have much choice. He grabbed the comb from his washstand and raked his wet hair back, then tucked in his shirt. He looked and felt considerably better. Better than Mrs. Elizabeth Beaumont had when she limped away from his offer to help, head high in that confounded crate as close as an infant, and he'd felt almost guilty letting her haul it all the way by herself. His grandma had raised no heathen, but there was a limit to the abuse a man could take when he was trying to be gentlemanly. And there was probably a limit to the meals he'd enjoy now at Snowfield's, as in few and far between, without the new boarder's vinegary attitude setting his teeth on edge. Snowfield's beat Bozeman's Cafe 6 ways to Sunday when it came to laying a table. Hoss Bozeman had cooked for a trail boss before he opened his eatery, and it showed. Depending on the length of Mrs. Beaumont's stay, good food might be scarce as rooms at the hotel. Garrett tethered Pearl to her picket out back, rubbed her ears, and went back inside, leaving the door open. Maybe he'd sleep in a cell tonight, since Snowfield had one too many customers and he currently had none. He propped the front door back with a chair and a prayer for a draft. It'd been hot as blazes lately, a fact that had fed the flames at Olin Springs' only hotel. 2 ground floor rooms survived, and one was the parlor. If it weren't for Snowfield, he'd for sure be bunking in an airless cell. Catching a cool breeze at the jail was near impossible, with the way it was built like a stockade and trussed up in the center of Main Street. Pearl grunted, and Garrett shot her a look down the narrow walkway fronting 3 cells. The dog would have been fine if not for that fandangled shiny bag on Elizabeth Beaumont's wrist. Or was it Betsy? Snowfield had called her Betsy when he lugged the trunk in the back door and left it in the kitchen. He huffed. Didn't matter what name she went by, so long as she didn't cross his path with that highfalutin attitude. She was entirely too kind to a man's gaze. A regular misdirection, she was, and not one he intended to follow again. He pitied her husband.
And this is Right Time Radio. We're going to take one more commercial break, and then we'll be back with a little more of this story, and then we're going to visit with David Lynn and get some really good information about how she came about writing this story.
Tune in weekdays to AM 1400 in the 4 o'clock hour for the Senior Minute. Useful whether you're a senior or not. These minute segments are meant to improve your life and lifestyle. Messages range from health and wellness to practical and positive solutions. All brought to you each week by Skyline Ridge Nursing and Rehabilitation. Getting to know and treat each senior individually and independently as possible. Call for more information at 275-0665.
Thinking of quitting smoking? Fremont County Department of Public Health and Environment will be facilitating a tobacco cessation group every 7 weeks. This group will be held at the Health Department located at 201 North 6th Street in Canyon City and will meet every Wednesday at 5:30 with new group sessions beginning every 7 weeks. For more information, call 719-276-7467. Remember, you can be tobacco-free.
Hi, this is Morgan from Mountain View Core Knowledge School with an important fire safety tip. Wildfires often start unnoticed and can spread quickly. If you live in wooded areas, give your home a fighting chance. Start by using non-combustible materials on the roof and exterior of your home. Keep a clear area of at least 30 feet around your house. Limb trees and shrubs off the ground and make your driveway accessible for firefighting vehicles. In the event of a threatening wildfire, have an escape plan. These steps can give you and your home a fighting chance against wildfire.
KRLN weather, partly cloudy skies this morning, then sunny, breezy, and warmer this afternoon. Southwest winds increasing at 10 to 15. A high today around 79. Mostly clear and breezy tonight, the low near 42. Then sunny and mild tomorrow, the high around 73. 34 was our low this morning after a high of 65 yesterday. 56 degrees currently at the Weather Center.
Talk Radio 1400.
Back to Right Time Radio. We've got Dave Lynn Spencer reading An Unexpected Redemption. Let's go back to that right now, and then we'll talk to you a little bit.
Pearl barked, a rare occurrence. Poor girl always had been partial to doodads, and Garrett couldn't rightly blame her for running after one. But grabbing it while it was still attached to its owner, it irritated him to admit the woman was right. The recall of her ruined suit and general disarray gravelled him further, as did a reluctant regret that he'd deliberately let her fall a second time. But her arrogant struggle for the crate was more than he could tolerate. It was as if she didn't trust him. He took a handful of jerked beef from a bag in his desk drawer and walked back to Pearl. The bones she got from Snowfield's table might be as few and far between as his suppers. After returning to his desk, he wrote out his thoughts on the hotel fire and categorized things he'd noticed, including the fact that the fire started on the second floor. Talk about forming a hose team had swirled as thick as the black smoke last night, and he'd been invited to an impromptu meeting this evening at the bank. Charles Harrison wanted to form a volunteer brigade. As the bank president, he had a vested interest. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but first they needed a hose and a reel. An itch under Garrett's collar said the meeting was also connected to another recent event, the arrival of Anthony Rochester, Esquire. Rochester's storefront office butted up against the feed store, an odd combination. He'd hung a shingle out front, his name underscored with attorney at law. Nothing wrong with the law, though Garrett suspected he and Rochester were on opposite sides of it. Something about the slicked-down man in his fancy striped suit smacked of a carpetbagger fixing to fleece the flock. Garrett shoved away from his desk, locked the front door, and went out the back. Good a time as any to make his rounds, look in on the hotel, and check with the express agent about a telegraph he expected from his old friend George Booth. Rochester claimed to hail from Kansas City, and if that was true, Booth would know. The Kansas lawman would also know why a big city lawyer had set up shop in a small Front Range cowtown. By late afternoon, Garrett's stomach was hunting his backbone, and he figured Bozeman could run a decoy. Beans and beef satisfied his hunger, but not his taste buds. They sorely missed Maggie Snowfield's table. For a fella not yet 30, he was getting mighty soft. The old trail cook had wrapped up a bone for Pearl, and back at the jail, Garrett dropped it in the chip wash basin she ate from. She licked her jowls and looked up at him with obvious affection, as if he'd just given her a 4-bit steak. At his desk, he leaned back, crossed his boots on the blotter, and settled in for an hour. The regulator on his wall ran 5 minutes fast. When it chimed, he'd have time to get to the bank by 6, and then some. He pulled his hat down over his eyes and folded his arms, chasing a contradiction that darted in and out like a worrisome horsefly. It tempted his self-control near like that sparkly bag had tempted Pearl. He had looked twice, and then he'd looked again just to make sure. And the evidence had been the same each time. Mrs. Elizabeth Beaumont wore no wedding ring.
Suspicious. Yeah. Thanks, David Lynn. Now, as we jump into this, you must have done some heavy research. I mean, at some point along here about all these, like, of the regulator. That's a clock, right?
Yes, that's a clock.
Is that a brand of clock?
Yes, it is, and a clock that would have typically been used in that era.
And damask and all these 1800s words that you use. It's fantastic.
All us women or ladies know what damask is.
Yeah.
No clue. Even when I read the definition, I looked it up while you were reading. I'm like, I still don't know what that is.
Reticule took him by surprise, too. I was like, it's a
But one of the researches you did for this is local. This talks about an arson event here. And who'd you talk to learn about starting fires?
Due to my history as a reporter here in town with the Daily Record, I got to know first responders and emergency personnel quite well. And Dan Brixey was the fire chief during my tenure at the Daily Record, and I knew about his skills with fire investigations. So I met with him, and he was my source and resource for some of the incidents and scenes in this book. There are other fires in the book, not just the one that it starts with. But I needed to know how to set the stage so it was realistic. Just as I used those details you mentioned about the 19th century, little things like that make a story for readers, especially readers of historical fiction. It makes them feel like they're in the setting.
Right.
And I knew Dan had the knowledge, as do many of our other firefighters, but he really focused in on the investigation of arson fires. And he gave me a lot of helpful information that is scattered throughout the book on finding what started it, what could have been used to start it in the 1800s, and then, of course, discovering who done it.
Yeah. I already have my suspicions, but I'm not going to go blabbing because they need to come tonight, go buy the book and read it and find out what it's
excellent, and I would bet that you're wrong.
It's a red herring.
Which made me...
So if people have a Kindle, or if they have Kindle Unlimited where they can get books for free, where can they get your books?
Amazon. You can get you can get this book on Kindle Unlimited.
Unexpected Redemption, just to remind you.
It's book 2 of a series.
Okay.
Betsy is the sister of one of the main characters of book 1, An Improper Proposal.
Which was released last year?
Improper Proposal was released in 2017. This book was released in 2018, and book 3 will come out next spring.
Neat.
All right. Just keep
Well, it's
rolling along.
Yes.
Really a good story.
Thank you.
Cannot wait to hear the rest
Yeah,
of it.
and the
on my
writing
own.
just, it does. We mentioned this last time you were on. Lynn and I are both writers, but, hey, we want to do a little commercial ourselves.
Yeah.
Mark Gillick and John Clark are going to be singing. They have a great folk music sound. They're super high class.
In fact, listen on Homegrown Fridays. We've got some of Mark Gillick's music going on now. So
And I had it playing all day yesterday at Papa's Restaurant. But they're going to, Gillick and Clark are going to be singing and playing the guitar and harmonica at Papa's Restaurant in Florence, 132 West Main, tonight, starting at 6.
Cool.
So come by and listen. There's no cover charge or anything, and you'll enjoy their humor and their awesome music.
And Mark has a CD, doesn't he still have that?
He
He
does.
has a CD of a collection of his songs for
he brought
education,
it by.
basically.
He brought it by, and that's what we're using. So.
I have it in my Jeep, and I listen to it when I'm driving around.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. So you can see David Lynn tonight at Kaleidoscope from 5 till 7. That's in downtown Canyon City. You can see her tomorrow in West Cliff and enjoy the ride up there to see all the beautiful changing
And
trees.
that's at Beckwith Ranch, right?
It
Yes.
is.
Yes.
And it's
north of Westcliff.
the boutique at Beckwith, and it's a historical Beckwith Ranch, and it's a holiday marketplace. So if you're trying to figure out what that all is, and it's from about 10 till 5,
Correct.
and you'll be there all day.
And
Yes.
they're giving away free views.
That's true.
Oh man, you can't beat
It's
the
true.
views. The
Free
views from
views.
right there.
Yeah.
They're
That
just
is
gorgeous.
awesome. It's a lot of fun up there. I also wanted to mention the music that we play at the beginning and the end of our show. We know the guy who wrote that, don't we?
Yeah, that's my boy.
It is. It's his oldest son, Lucas, and we want to give him credit because he wrote that for us, which is pretty cool. And we also want to invite all you local authors or writers, if you don't consider yourself an author, but you consider yourself a writer, please contact us at righttimeradio@gmail.com and show us some of your writing, and let's see if we can get you on air as well. We are looking for dramas, like we're going to do next week. We're going to redo The Alien at 4 Mile. Which
We're going to be doing it live again.
Right,
but-
live again with local voice actors. So we'd love stuff like that. We like short stories. We like excerpts like we did today with David Lynn. So give us a hint at what you have, and we'll figure out what we can do to get you on the air.
I'd like to put a challenge out there too, since Florence High School or schools are off on Fridays, and now Canyon City's off every other Friday. Maybe we can also get them to
that'd be
come
great.
on the air on
Definitely.
Fridays, because they've got time, don't they?
And I was just talking to somebody yesterday at Papa's that I was promoting the radio show, and I said, some of the funniest shows we had were from the Canyon City High School.
Yeah.
Now we need some of those Florence high schoolers
That's right.
to step up and
That's right.
So-
write a neat
yeah.
piece
So
about
English
a
teachers-
homecoming football game or something.
Yeah, English teachers, think about us. And when you make your assignments, we'd love to have some of their work, have them come in and read it, or have someone from the high schools come in and read it. We've got some students actually with the Canyon City schools that actually are our voice actors. So we'd love to have that kind of stuff. Drama department, contact us. Let's see how we can work together with you guys.
All right, and if you missed any part of this episode, or you want to go back and look at the other episodes, it's at righttimeradio.my-free.website. All right, that's it for today. We'll talk to you next Friday at 10.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Delicious, delectable, delightful. Beyond Madness Catering for all your special occasions. Call 276-3088, 1400 AM, KRLN, Canyon City, Florence.